Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to St Mary's Vicarage on this Thursday, the 17th of December. And it's good to be with you this morning. What a glorious morning this morning. The sun coming up and the fog and the mist. And one of the joys of being up high here on the hill in Handley is the views from the vicarage. And even sitting at ground level, looking out my study window now, I can still see just the beautiful light hitting the dew that's still on the trees and just giving that wonderful glint of light on the edge of things. And I can see in the distance the mist hugging the hills of Cranbourne Chase, but just sort of lit up in a beautiful way. I have to say, I've been a country parson all my ministry, in all my ministry, apart from my time as a curate. And really, I have to say that here in Handley, we are the most spectacular views I've ever had in any house that we've lived in. We did live in a house in my first year at Lincoln Theological College that was right at the top of Steep Hill. And though we didn't have views of Lincolnshire from where we were, what we did have on the right-hand side of the house, we had spectacular views of the cathedral. And on the left-hand side, we had a spectacular view of the castle, which was quite close. We always had to remember to keep the bathroom window shut, because if people were visiting Lincoln Castle, there was a turret sort of probably about 100 foot above our house, and if people were up on the turret, they could peer down into our bathroom, which was always interesting. At Shrivenham, though we had a beautiful vicarage there and a big garden, I mean, it was an 8-acre garden, it was very enclosed, so the front of the vicarage sort of looked out onto the back of what was originally a sort of garage, MOT garage, now a sort of cafe, and the back garden just looked out onto other people's. So we didn't have these spectacular, impressive views. And as somebody who is a passionate photographer, particularly landscape photographer, I have to say, every morning when I get up and I stand on the landing and look out of that top window at the Chase, I find it just mesmerising, because it doesn't matter really what the weather conditions are like. The light is always doing fascinating things with the hills in the distance and the trees. But I have to say, this morning it is absolutely spectacular, and I really had to resist the urge to quickly chuck on some clothes and jump in the car to get out and get some photographs of mist and such like. However, I over the summer and autumn, I have taken hundreds and hundreds of pictures, both on digital and film. So I thought to myself, I really do need to get some of those processed before I start taking any more. Plus, I had quite a bit of admin to do this morning. Anyhow, I have been able to sit at my desk and just take in the beauty of that scene. And it just reminds me how greatly privileged we are to live in such a stunningly beautiful part of the world. Anyhow, so today I'm on my Todd in the vicarage because Kate has taken our two boys all the way up to Oxford today to just go and see their grandmother, socially distanced, of course, just before Christmas, to exchange gifts. Really sort of went a bit sad, really, because last year, of course, we went. We often either see our families now before or just before Christmas or after. As I explained, Christmas Day yesterday, I'm too tired really to be the host with the most. But last year we all went up, and though Kate's mum is suffering from sort of onset dementia and such like, we were able to sort of take her out and take her to Oxford, which she remembers very well and such like. So they've gone up to do that today. So yeah, I'm on my Todd in the vicarage at the moment, but got plenty to do. But yeah, a bit of a sadness. It'd be good for the boys to see their grandma because they really haven't seen her since back in March. Kate goes about once a fortnight or once every 3 weeks to make sure everything is all good for her mum. She, like many people in her situation, has a sort of a care package which involves carers coming in every day and such like. But of course, one of the problems with dementia and memory loss is she can't remember sometimes who these people are who are coming to help her, and that can cause difficulties and problems. So, for example, yesterday, and I share this with you because I know that there are many other people with older relatives who have these difficulties in different ways. But yesterday, the cleaners were supposed to come that helped clean her house, and she wouldn't let them in because she just didn't know who they were. It's very, very difficult because if the cleaners then can't get either me or Kate on the phone, and we can ring Kate's mum and say you need to let these people in, because they have lots of other things to do as part of this care package. They can't just hang around, and they have to go. So it's a challenging thing, but there we go. So but we try and make the best of those situations. But it'll be good for for Anne to see her grandchildren, even at a distance, today, and just before Christmas and such like. So there we go. Well, of course, what we're waiting for, and I don't know whether the news has been published just before I came online, but of course we're all waiting to see what tier we will end up in. There's huge hope that Dorset may go down to tier 1. But of course, the way the figures work is that they include the sort of whole of the local authority, which of course includes Bournemouth and such like. And though the figures in Bournemouth are not as high as other parts of the country and such like, they were higher. So when you factor those in, it does sort of push us up. But as I gather, even if you do take all of those figures into account, our figure that they come up with, I'm not quite sure what it is, whether the R rate or how many people are infected per 100,000, isn't it? I think our R rate is actually lower than the Isle of Wight was when it was allowed to go into tier 1. So who knows what's going to happen. And of course, we heard yesterday that the government is not changing the guidance about Christmas, the sort of 5-day period in Christmas. But a lot of caution is being urged in how we use, in a sense, that flexibility and what we do. So it's a tricky one, and of course it is worrying that in lots of parts of the country the R rate is going up despite tiers and despite lockdowns and such like. And in a sense, you don't have to be a qualified scientist, to know the reason why, and it's very, very simple that the weather is cold and people are socializing, probably within family groups, indoors more, and people who in a sense have the virus but don't show any symptoms, in a sense of just carrying the virus, are then passing it on to other family members. So it's a real tricky one. But in a sense, I think somebody said that important thing that it's hopefully just one Christmas, and I'd hate to be in a situation where you just maybe thought, well, blow it, let's just get together as a family this year. And as a result of that, maybe one or two of those family members will not be with you next year because they have contracted this virus and are not fit or well enough to be able to fight it off. So it's a real difficult one, and hugely frustrating in a sense. But I think we can still make Christmas something special. We can do things within our community, and we can look out for one another and our neighbours and such like, and do things like that. Now, as part of that, of course, last week we had our carols down at the cricket pitch and the tap in Handley. It's Pentridge's turn tomorrow. So at 6 o'clock on the village green down at Pentridge, there will be socially distanced village carols. Excuse me. I just had a bit of toast. I don't know why. I should listen to the thing. You know, all TV people, they say never eat anything before you go on air. But yeah, so socially distanced carols on the village green down at Pentridge at 6 o'clock. The music is going to be led by Penwood. So we've got a little brass duo or trio there who are going to lead the carols for us, which will be fantastic. It's exactly the same as what we did in Handley, virtually the same carol sheet. Pentridge opted not to have the 12 Days of Christmas. That's partly because Hazel and the band there, they don't really have the music for that, and they haven't practiced that. So they're finishing with O Come All Ye Faithful, a bit more traditional down there. But yes, same applies. If you're coming along, Pentridge and Woodyates folk, you need to maintain your social distancing within your family groups. Please make sure that you either scan in the QR code, the track and trace, or sign in with track and trace. There will be some stewards down there with high-vis vests. And if you're parking, unless you're sort of elderly or infirmed, lots of people normally park on the green. Well, we want to avoid that with traffic coming up and people walking. Please walk if you can. If you live in Pentridge, walk from wherever you live. If you're coming from Woodyates, then please try and park in some of the other places that you can park down there in Pentridge. So that'll be 6 o'clock, weather permitting. I had a look at the Met Office this morning. I think it's going to be overcast, but the Met Office this morning said that the rain won't set in until about 8-9 o'clock. As the village carols will last about 45 minutes. Hopefully we'll all be done and dusted by about 7 or just after, so we will escape the rain. So that's this Friday at 6 o'clock. Now I've got an RFO meeting this afternoon, a Zoom meeting, as we plan. We're going to be, all the RFOs, because obviously a lot of our project work is all on hold. We're going to be doing another series of webinars in the first quarter of next year, looking at various aspects of Easter, and particularly about how to develop lay ministry within our parishes. So I've got a planning meeting about that this afternoon. But then hopefully after that at 4 o'clock, Rob, or Skip as we call him from the Scouts, is coming up with those some of those fabulous coloured lights that you saw at the village carols and that often get used at the Scouts fireworks. I'm very grateful to the Scouts. They're lending us some of those lights so we can light up the outside of St Mary's in beautiful colours. And Rob is coming up at hopefully at 4 o'clock. And we're just going to lay those out. So this evening, if you look at St Mary's, you will see it sort of floodlit in different colours, and they'll stay on till about just before midnight. We're going to put them on a timer, mindful of light pollution as well, because people like to look at the stars, and they'll switch off and they'll come on again tomorrow evening as well. So I'm very grateful for that. Thank you also to people that have lent us some fairy lights and such like. Most of them I've actually used inside the church, because there was only really one set that I was given that I think we could use outdoors safely. So I have utilised most of those inside the church, as you will see. This Sunday, there's a Matin service down at St Rumbold's at 10 o'clock. That's going to be a said Matin service, and that will also be broadcast online as well. So that's 10 o'clock this Sunday. And then, of course, we sort of move into the run-up to Christmas next week. The broadcasts will happen next week on Tuesday, Wednesday, And Christmas Eve, just a reminder, 6:30, we have a Holy Communion service here, a said Holy Communion service, so we will play some Christmas music up here at Handley. Then on Christmas Day, there will be a 10 o'clock, again, said communion here at Handley, followed by an 11:15 said communion at St Rumbold's, Pentridge. And as I've said, has gone out in the information, we'd ask people to choose one of those communion services to attend. You know, unless obviously it's a bit different if you're a church warden or something like that and you're helping out with them. But for everyone else, please choose one of those communion services if you wish to receive Christmas communion, so we can ensure we're not having to turn anybody away. And that really will be it for Christmas services regarding the church. But as I've said, please do go up into the church if you haven't been, please tell your friends and neighbours about it. The wonderful nativity grotto that is in the church. It really is quite something, so do go and have a look at that. On Boxing Day, providing our tier doesn't go up and things don't change drastically, we will be doing the woozle hunt, but we'll be doing it socially distanced. It's outside, so we're not going to go in the church or anything. People are asked to gather outside the church in their family groups at about 10 o'clock, and we will maintain, as we walk around the wreck hunting the woozle, we will encourage everybody to maintain social distancing within their family groups, and hopefully we can have a bit of fun, which is much needed. If you want to know about woozling, I think there's an article in the Downsman. But that's open to everybody, families, children, people on their own. If you want to bring your dogs, then by all means do bring the dogs, because obviously you can't have a hunt without hounds. And of course, if you want to be a hunt protester, you can be a hunt protester. Just make sure you've got a placard or a rattle. Placards need to say things like "Save the Woozle" and such. I've got some that I give out, and if you've got a rattle as well, and it's all a bit of fun. And that will be 10 o'clock on Boxing Day. The following Sunday, Sunday after Christmas, that was the 27th, I think, that will be a said Holy Communion service in St Mary's. Okay, my phone's going to ring again. Don't know why that keeps happening. I've have to unplug it. Apologies for that. That really is the sort of Christmas services and such like that are going to be taking place. Right, let's turn to our Advent reflection. Now, the 17th of December is an interesting thing in the calendar, because it really does mark the run up to Christmas and the readings change. And the 17th of December always fills me with a sort of flashback to when I was a curate. And it taught me a lesson then, which was always check the readings of the day before the service. And my parish where I was a curate was pretty high church, so we had almost a daily Eucharist at the church. And I think by December, I'd been a curate, I'd been ordained a few months by then, and I'd got a bit cocky. I thought, okay, I've got this sus now. And I was assigned often as the deacon to read the Gospel. And the readings set for today are Genesis 49, verse 2, and then 8 to 10, which I will read in a bit. And then the Gospel, which is Matthew 1, 1 to 17. And of course, if you know that passage from Matthew's Gospel, it is the genealogy of Jesus. It's a lot of Old Testament names. Abraham was father to Isaac, Isaac the father to Jacob, Jacob the father to Judah and his brothers. Judah was the father of Perez and Zerah, and Tamar being their mother. Perez was the father of Hezron, and so on and so on and so on. I think now I can probably say that passage in my sleep, as it terrified me so much as a curate. But there we go. And bearing in mind I am dyslexic. So there I was as a young curate, all ready to go. And we got through halfway through the communion or the mass, and I was on. It was time for me to read the Gospel. As we were quite high church, the tradition is you would sort of walk to the priest or the celebrant who would give the person who was going to read the Gospel a blessing. I went to that, and then I went and stood at the lectern and opened the book, and suddenly saw all of these hugely horrible Old Testament names and a massive long list like Nashon and Salom and Boaz and all of those. And I thought, oh no, this is going to be awfully embarrassing. And it was, as I sort of stumbled through all of these Old Testament names. However, I think a couple of years later, or no, it was when I was later on when I was a canon, I was on duty at the cathedral on this particular day, and I've always got the 17th of December in my mind, and I knew I was on duty at the cathedral on that day, and I thought, I bet I'll end up reading this. The dean or something, or sub-dean will ask me to read the gospel. So I gave it a quick practice before I went up. However, I wasn't asked to read the gospel. The dean decided to read the gospel, not the current dean of Christ Church. And what was very amusing is he walked up to the lectern, and I don't know whether he'd done the same thing and had not bothered to look at the reading or practice it. Though you would think somebody who was the dean of Christ Church, not only the dean of the cathedral, but also the head of the University College of Christ Church, would be able to sort of do something like this without any trouble at all. Anyhow, he walked up to the lectern to read the gospel, and he paused and looked down. And this is what he said. This is how he did it. He said, "A genealogy of Jesus Christ, son of David, son of Abraham, and a whole lot of other very, very, very important people." And then he turned on and just read the last bit of the gospel. Well, maybe as a dean of Christ Church, you could get away with that. So that's what he did. But the 17th of December is what we're in now. So enough of stories. Let me turn to the reflection meditation for today. So let me just read Genesis, which is a bit more straightforward. I'm not going to read the huge list of Old Testament names. So Genesis 49, beginning to read at verse 2 and then 8 to 10. Jacob called his sons and said, "Gather round, sons of Jacob, and listen. Listen to Israel, your father. Judah, your brother, shall praise you. You grip your enemies by the neck. Your father's sons shall do you homage. Judah is a lion cub. You climb back, my son, from your kill. Like a lion he crouches and lies down, or a lioness. Who dare rouse him? The scepter shall not pass from Judah, nor the mace from between his feet, until he comes to whom it belongs, to whom the people shall render obedience." So that's the reading from Genesis. And of course, as I said, the gospel reading is the genealogy of Jesus. But the whole point of it is pointing to the lineage of Jesus, going right back to David and beyond. So here is the reflection Advent meditation for today. First of all, an invitation to prayer. Family is a theme that I gleaned from today's readings. So let's begin with a prayer of thanksgiving for our family here on earth and our spiritual family. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. A reflection. The first reading begins with Jacob, a father calling his sons together, saying, "Assemble and listen, sons of Jacob. Listen to Israel, your father." He goes on to talk about the authority given to Judah, and that he shall be praised and received homage from the people. Then we turn to the gospel and read the lineage of authority being handed down from Abraham all the way to Jesus. As I think about handing down things this Advent, I think about traditions. The other day, my 1.5-year-old son, as we were sitting down to dinner, folded his hands before he began to eat. I smiled proudly, knowing that we have passed down the tradition of praying before meals. So I'd invite you to take some time to reflect on the traditions you are handing on and the traditions you are not yet handing on, and invite the Lord into that reflection. A prayer. Lord, I ask that you help me this Advent season to hand on authority, teachings, prayers and traditions. Call to mind the good things that I am passing on and convict me of the things that I need to do better. Give me the strength to pass on the faith this Advent so that we may be prepared to receive our Saviour. Amen. And this meditation, so it comes from a publication, it's the Catholic Gazette, which is an American publication, Roman Catholic publication, and this one this morning comes from Andrea Patch, is the managing director of the Evangelization and Catechesis for the Archdiocese of Connecticut. Her husband John and she have been married for 8 years and they have 3 young children. They enjoy spending time with family and playing competitive board games. Competitive board games at Christmas often leads to family disputes, I have to say. Thinking of Kate's mum today, I'll just finish with an interesting... Kate's mum is a very highly educated woman. She was one of the first women to ever study at a Anglican theological college. She wasn't there to train for the priesthood or anything like that, but this was in the 60s. But prior to this, you know, women were not allowed to study at Anglican theological colleges. They were there purely for men. But up at Boars Hill, the college there, which was not Cuddesdon, but the college up at Boars Hill. So she was allowed to, in a sense, do her degree in theology, Oxford degree in theology, and be based at Boars Hill. And that's where she actually met Kate's dad, who obviously did go on to be ordained. So she did that, and then she later did a MA in her later years after she retired as a teacher. She was a grammar school teacher for many years, but she did an MA in church history. So she's very, very well read, and particularly on those subjects, and highly interested in academia and people who are academic. I've always been a terrible disappointment to her in that aspect. Anyhow, she likes quizzes, but I think the sorts of quizzes she likes are probably more things like Mastermind, and she could be a little bit judgmental at times and was always very interested in people's academic background, which is why I say I was a bit of a disappointment to being really the sort of blagger's guide to academia, and having gone to a terrible place like an art college to study art and photography. Anyhow, one Christmas when we were all together, my sister-in-law Jane, her boyfriend at the time, they'd been together quite some time actually, they were with us. And Mark was a lovely chap, but he was a real sort of salt of the earth chap. He hadn't had any sort of higher education at all. He'd, I think, left school when he was 16 and such like. But he was very, very clever in, and he was a sort of business. He actually worked for Rentokil, but he was one of their salespeople. He's the sort of person that could sell snow to the Eskimos, Mark was. But he was one of those people who could just soak in facts, and all of those sorts of facts that, you know, you probably don't need to remember, but that's the sort of thing he could do. And of course, was exactly the sort of person that you would want to have on your pub quiz team. Anyhow, one of the traditions we had was getting out, oh gosh, that general knowledge game with the cheeses, Trivial Pursuit. So we'd get out the Trivial Pursuit, and I'm sure the reason for getting out the Trivial Pursuit was normally so that Kate's mum, God bless her, could show off how clever she was. She's terribly competitive. Anyhow, this particular Christmas, Mark came along, and she sort of quite liked Mark, but I think it sort of was a bit of an issue that, you know, he'd never sort of done A-levels or gone to university or anything like that. And anyhow, of course, he absolutely cleaned up at Trivial Pursuit, and completely gave Anne an absolute thrashing at the game, much to her annoyance. But I have to say, for the rest of us, for Kate, Jane, and I, we were all sitting there sniggering because it was just wonderful to see somebody whose academic prowess had been sort of completely reduced to nothing on the Trivial Pursuit board by somebody who had a handful of GCSEs, which is why, in a sense, never judge a book by its cover. Funnily enough, we never played Trivial Pursuit again after that. But hey ho, the joys of Christmas. Anyhow, have a great day, folks, and enjoy the beautiful weather and light this morning. Let's just close with the grace. The grace of our Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us all evermore. Do take care, every blessing, and where are we? Yes, I will see you tomorrow. God bless.